everyone. I would like to call back to order the Pasco County Board of County Commissioners meeting for September 4th, 2018. If you could please make sure your cell phones are silenced, I would appreciate it. We would appreciate it.
Had one, have we?
Okay, we do not have any resolutions, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we will move on, proceed to the public hearing agenda, starting with item P1 of ordinances. Madam Clerk, do we have proof?
We do. Tampa Bay Times. Tampa Bay Times, July 27th, 2018.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Denise Hernandez, Planning and Development. Today, this is the adoption of an ordinance by the Pasco County Board of County Commissioners amending a Pasco County Land Development Code, amending Section 402.5A, temporary uses to provide for mobile food operations, amending Appendix A definitions, providing for applicability, repealer, severability, inclusion into the Land Development Code, and an effective date. This ordinance was presented to you on August 21st for first reading. It also was found by the local planning agency to be consistent with a comprehensive plan, and they recommended approval to the board. I also ask you to, if you would like, to also take up item R1, which is a resolution establishing a fee schedule for this same purpose, which is a $100 annual registration fee for mobile food operations. And I'm here with any questions you may have.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
Thank you, sir. So you and I talked earlier, so just for the record, so we're charging $100 for the permits, which is lower than the surrounding counties, is that not correct?
Yes, I have some information here. So what have we been able to acquire? City of Tampa has an annual permit fee of $162. St. Petersburg has an annual fee of $170. Okay. Sarasota County has an annual fee of $140. And then there's some smaller cities that do charge less, such as the City of Safety Harbor, which is $65, and the City of Leesburg, which is $50.
It's a city, small area. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Fellow commissioners, I think this is a great idea for our county. It's only going to benefit us. I know it's public hearing, but.
Okay, this is a public hearing. I do not have anyone signed up for P1. If you'd like to speak to P1, please come forward.
See no one, move for approval.
Second. Under discussion. I just, know we have it on 90 days, but I would like us to consider increasing that so that it becomes available on weekends 12 months, through 12 months.
Mr. Chair, do you understand what the 90 days, I mean, the 90 days?
Yes, no more than 90 days in one calendar year.
So, explain
Sure.
why.
90 days is for food trucks, and then there's a provision for temporary roadside stands, and that's a little bit longer. That's 180 days, if I'm not mistaken. Then there's also the possibility of doing an actual food court, which is a permanent operation, and that would require going through site plan process.
Well, I would just like to amend it to, instead of saying 90 days, to say 104.
What was the 100, I'm just curious with the 104, because the reason they're doing it this way is you don't have it's not permanent like a restaurant's considered permanent. So you're gonna get to, all they have to do is, they're gone for 2 days, they can come back.
No, it's a 90 days cumulative, not 90 days
Per year.
consecutive.
Well, you're talking about okay.
Yeah, so I would like to amend the
So
motion
they could
to
still come back.
increase it to 104 days.
I'm just curious what the 104 is for.
That's
52
just every
times
weekend.
2.
You just want to cover all the weekends is what you want to do?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll second that.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. It's a roll call vote.
As amended. District 1, Commissioner Oakley. Okay, go
If the
ahead.
clerk will. So I interpret that as Commissioner Starkey has made a motion to amend the ordinance that's before you, and she's gotten a second, so you need to vote on that first, then the ordinance as a whole.
And then R1.
And
So vote on the
Let's
amendment.
get the ordinance
Yeah.
adopted, then we
Okay.
deal with R1.
So on the proposed amendment, District 1, Commissioner Oakley.
Aye.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Mariano.
Aye.
District 4, Chairman Wells.
Aye.
And so now if we would have a motion to adopt the ordinance as a whole.
So move, P1.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. It's a roll call vote.
District 1, Commissioner Oakley.
Aye.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Mariano.
Aye.
District 4, Chairman Wells.
Aye. And do we need a motion for R1?
You need a motion for R1.
Move for approval, R1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you,
Denise.
Commissioners.
Okay. Item P2, Madam Clerk.
We do have approved Tampa Bay Times, August 24th, 2018.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Adam Thomas, Director of Tourism, the Office of Tourism Development for Pasco County.
It's warm in here.
Before we get into the public hearing to amend the Chapter 102 for the Pasco County Code of Ordinance by amending Section 102 to 190, I'd like to show, per the board's request, the visitor profile study and economic impact study from the past 6 months, from January 2018 to up to date to June 2018, and just give the board and the audience a little bit of update of how we've been doing over the past 6 months. This is all new data, new research that the Office of Tourism Development and the Tourist Development Council has not had in years past, and these numbers really show a great light of what we're doing, not only for the visitor industry, but also the economic community for Pasco County. You can see we're over 450,000 visitors in a 6-month period that generated over 480,000 room nights for Pasco County, spending close to $235 million. Jobs sustained by tourism, our tourism industry was close to 3,600. Income sustained by tourism is over 83 million, and taxes sustained by tourism generated close to $23 million in sales tax for the destination. $15 million in state and federal, and you can see where the local taxes has generated as well over a 6-month period. Hotel occupancy rate is up to almost 3%, reaching almost 75%. That's great for new product development that's coming online. When hotels are really looking at our destination, they look first at the STAR report that shows where our occupancy trend is at and where it's going to be going over the course of the next 18 months. And right now, we're steadily hovering right around that 75, 78% range. So back to the ordinance amendment. This is a public hearing for an ordinance amending Chapter 102 of the Pasco County Code of Ordinance by amending Section 102 to 190 to amend the updated Tourist Development Council plan for Pasco County, providing for applicability, repealed, servability, inclusion into code, and effective date. Our request is to adopt the 2019 to 2021 3-year strategic tourism development plan. And over the course of the next 3 years, we're going to be focusing on 4 key goals for the tourism industry that creates a more focused and a more strategic direction as it relates to destination marketing, sales, and service, destination development, destination advocacy and community stakeholder relations, and destination resource and management performance. And before you today are just 7 key goals, are what we're going to be focusing on as it relates to our expenditures of the tourism development tax per the state statute of 125-0104. And with that, I ask, what's that? Oh, I open up to public comment.
Commissioner Moore.
Thank you, sir. So, thank you, Adam, and you and your team have been doing a great job. And
Thank
I'm
you.
honored to chair the Tourism Development Council now. And next week, we're going to the Governor's Conference in Orlando, so I know a lot of great things will come out of that, too. So, I mean, this is the first time this has ever happened. This is the first time we've ever seen a report of this nature, and I think you're also going to see some great numbers in the next 12 months, or some, I always like to call them guesstimates, but there's projections out there that even make this look small compared to what you're going to see. Quite, yeah, right.
Yes, sir.
So good things going on, but Adam's team has done a great job. I just hope everybody supports his efforts, and we can move on.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Mariano.
you know, when I look at the report, going through it, I didn't see anything about SunWest. I didn't see any, I saw pictures of the beach, but didn't even look like our beach. We talk about destination marketing, and for all the other counties, they don't advertise Pasco, they always pick places, et cetera. I didn't see anything about tree hoppers in there either, so I hope you're gonna take a closer look at all that to find out what we're gonna do to promote everything, especially with what's going on with Red Tide down below. We've got a great opportunity in
Great
front of us,
opportunity.
so.
They're in there.
to the comment, Commissioner. That's our next step, and our next presentation to the board is our 2019 communications plan, which that's going to be in it. This is just our strategic plan of where we're going to be focusing for the next 3 years.
No, great job. We've come a long way.
Yes, sir.
So lucky to have you and your team, so. Okay, this is a public hearing. I do not have anyone signed up to speak on P2. If you'd like to speak on this item, please come forward.
So no one move for approval.
Second. Okay, it's been motioned second. It's a roll call vote.
I don't want to say something.
District 1, Commissioner Oakley.
Aye.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Mariano.
Aye.
District 4, Chairman Wells.
Aye.
I just wanted to say, I don't know if Keith is here, but we're working on some kind of ceremony to commemorate the beginning of construction of the Starkey Gap. And then we plan next year when it's done. Of course, this is the largest segment of the Coast to Coast Trail that's being constructed. It'll close the biggest length. And we want to have a huge event inviting all the counties along the Coast to Coast Trail. For those in the audience here, it starts in St. Pete, and it's a bike trail that will go through our county and go all the way over to Titusville. And I know the state plans to market it internationally. So just hope your tourism board gets involved in that, engaged in that, and we'll have a big celebration.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next we will proceed to the procedures for rezoning. Mr. Stein-Snyder, please review the procedures for rezoning.
There are 2 rezoning agendas, regular and consent. Staff will present each application to the Board of County Commissioners. If staff or Planning Commission has recommended approval and there's no opposition, the application will be considered by the board without further presentation. If staff or Planning Commission has recommended denial, or if there's opposition to the application, the applicant will be given 5 minutes for a presentation. The opposition will be given 3 minutes for each individual or 5 minutes for a group representative, and the applicant will be given 3 minutes for rebuttal. Any individual disagreeing with staff or Planning Commission recommendation, or anyone wishing to object to any condition of the rezoning may at this time request the petition be pulled from the consent agenda, in which case that application will be heard under the regular agenda later on during the meeting. Otherwise, all rezoning applications on the consent agenda will be approved by a single motion and vote. If you wish to speak to any petition, please give your name and address and whether or not you've been sworn for the record. These are quasi-judicial public hearings. The law in Florida is that mere public support or opposition of an application is insufficient for this board to take action. Please limit your comments to those criteria for rezoning found within the board's land development code.
Okay, so if you plan to speak today, if you could stand so I could swear you in. Stand and raise your right hand if you plan to speak this afternoon. Okay. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, so help you God? Great. Thank you very much. When you do come to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. Thank you so much.
And whether or not you've been sworn.
Yes, thank you.
Good team effort there, good team effort. Okay, we'll start with item P3. Do we have proof of P3?
We do have proof. Thank you. Tampa Bay Times, June 22nd, 2018.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Denise Hernandez. Item P3 is conditional use 18-27 PDD 18-CU27. It's in the name of Patricia Weber Fessmeyer, North American Towers, Earthcom Services, for conditional use for 195-foot above ground level monopole wireless communication facility in an AC district. The applicant has requested a continuance to December 11th, 2018. Board of County Commissioners meeting at 1:30 in Dade City. The applicant will be responsible for renoticing and reposting the item.
Move to continue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. P4, do we have proof, Madam
We do
Clerk?
have proof. Tampa Bay Times, June 22nd, 2018.
Item P4 is PDD 18-CU30. This is in the name of Terry D. and Mary M. McKnight for a 110-foot observation tower in an AR agricultural residential district. This comes to you with a recommendation. Staff requested continuance to October 9th, 2018, Board of County Commissioners meeting in Dade City at 1:30 p.m.
Move to continue October 9th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Today we have 3 public hearings on the consent agenda. These items will be approved with one vote without a presentation unless there is someone here in objection. Items P5 through P7 are on the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have proof?
We do. P5, Tampa Bay Times, July 20th, 2018, and by affidavits and posting at the site. P6, Tampa Bay Times, June 22nd, 2018. P7, Tampa Bay Times, August 17th, 2018, and by affidavit and postings at the site.
Item P5 is PDD 187341. This is in the name of Prime San Antonio LLC. It's a rezoning from R1MH Single Family Mobile Home District and C2 General Commercial Districts to a C2 General Commercial District. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission and Planning and Development staff.
Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition to this item? Seeing no one, leave on consent.
Move for approval.
No,
Oh, you don't have to?
no, you gotta wait till.
Item P6 is PDD 18CU31. This is a conditional use in the name of B&Z Port Richey LLC, Gables at Gulfview. This is for multiple family dwellings in a C2 General Commercial District. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval with conditions from both the Planning Commission and Planning and Development Department.
Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition to this item? Seeing no one, remain on consent.
Item P7 is PDD 18-0979 and its companion to P6. This is a development of regional impact, essentially built-out agreement, amendment request, and this is B&Z Port Richey, and it's a first amendment to an essentially built-out agreement for Gulfview Square Mall, DRI number 215. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval.
Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in opposition to this item? Seeing no one, remain on consent.
Move approval of consent.
Second.
Wait, can we,
We'll give it to Commissioner Mariano.
okay, thank you,
Second was Commissioner Oakley.
thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I had
Thank
2
you.
out of 3 in my district on that one, so.
I got you. I got you. That's why I gave it to you. I got you.
Just trying to
P8,
help you.
Madam Clerk, do we have proof?
We do. Tampa Bay Times, August 12th, 2018.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Is the Caldwell Public Works. And this is 8th Avenue paving assessment, project number 943. This is a board-initiated project. There are 4 streets included in this project. The total estimated cost is $358,000. The maximum cost per ERU is $1,200. The amount of the discount is $68,300. And the maximum cost per ERU after the discount for those parcels abutting 8th Avenue is $1,600. And the cost for those not abutting 8th Avenue is $1,800. What we ask the board is that for the parcels along 8th Avenue, they'll get a discount of 25%. This is a location map. The roads to be paved are in brown, beige, yellow. And this is a condition on 8th Avenue. Another photograph from 8th Avenue, Genevieve Circle again, Hill Drive, and the staff is asking for approval. One thing to mention, Commissioner Oakley, you brought up where the right-of-way in for 8th Avenue ended, and we have verified with real estate, and it actually goes to Jennifer Lane. That was not included originally. That would be an additional $25,000.
Gotcha.
To go, with that.
Okay.
That limit.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Are we good?
Move approval.
That's public, it's a public
I thought it
hearing,
was
so I know,
public,
this is a public hearing. I do have some folks signed up to speak on P8. If you there's only a couple of you, if you'd like to just come forward, please. I believe there's 3 people signed up to speak on P8.
You have Ed.
Looks like,
We don't mind.
looks like Ed, Gary, and Leon. Whatever order you'd like's fine.
You're elected.
My name, Ed Laddig. I live at 5349 Hill Drive, and I also own a vacant property back on Genevieve Circle. I've lived there since '92. It's in dire need of being repaved. I don't know how you guys do the computation, whatever, but I'm sure you've had that in the works for decades. I'm in favor of it getting done. It needs done. When my sister comes to visit me, I can't take her down 8th Avenue. It's getting hard to take her down Hill Avenue because of her back issues. It's the worst road when I'm out traveling. I see. So if you do not approve it, then please look into how you can improve it later because it does need done. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gary Steve, and I live at 37651 8th Avenue. I opposed the repaving. I had prepared a speech today, but rehearsing it this morning, I decided that I shouldn't waste my 3 minutes on talking about the 1,700 mobile homes in Betmar Acres that 8th Avenue feeds, or the 75-unit RV park directly across from the access to my home, or that my dad had given the property for the right-of-way to begin with, but should talk about my assessment of the 10 acres that I have now of R3. The zoning was placed on the property by the county and had been AR on the 10 acres when purchased 50-plus years ago, and it was a pasture for 7 cows. But I found out that it could be split one time, which my dad did for me. He put the remaining 7.5 acres in my name before he passed last year. The property, according to my survey given to the bank, shows that 80% of it is in flood zone AE. The water comes from Betmar to my property to Zephyr Lake. There was one small strip in the middle of the property where I built on. It's the highest point, and it's still in flood zone X. The bank required me to have flood insurance to get a mortgage. That there is no feasible way to develop 28 lots, which I'm assessed, or to be able to get a permit to build in a flood basin just because the zoning says it's R3. I found out Saturday, September 1, according to the Pasco website, on repaving number 12, it says that I could have downsized my parcel to a different classification or have deed restrictions limiting to the amount of development. That's what I will do as soon as possible. My estimated portion of the paving is $45,000. If I choose your payment plan along with my taxes, my payment would be $846 a month for 10 more years. Is that my time?
You still have 1 minute.
And with the insurances and the living expenses, I may have to sell the property that my parents wanted me and my family to continue to live on, with no wishes ever to develop it, just be family. I thought 8th Avenue was a county road. Thought that it had been built and maintained better, then it especially wouldn't have to be repaved. I didn't know that repaving would be different than maintaining. I've been told that, but if you don't maintain it very well, I mean, other than just patching the holes with a little bit of asphalt, that it probably would have been last longer. That's my speech.
Mr. Chairman.
I have a
Thank you,
copy of the
sir.
survey
Mr.
if
Chairman.
you'd like to see the flood zone.
Commissioner Oakley?
In his situation, Ansley, maybe you can answer this. If he puts on there restrictions where he can't divide it into those units,
Yes.
then his amount will be reduced?
Yes, Commissioner. I just need supporting documentation, and then I come back to the board and provide that, and we make.
And you'll take care of that for him, so.
If you provide the information.
If that's what he wishes
I've
to
been
do.
in touch with him, and
Yes, sir.
information has been.
That's the problem with some of
Well,
our
it's been
people.
harsh even
They're
to
too
me.
harsh on certain people, and that needs to be done, because he's not planning on developing that land.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
So can I, Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Moore?
follow up with that too? I'm in agreement with Commissioner Oakley. So, but we're wanting us to vote on this today, but how can we, Mr. Saunders, you may need to jump in here. How can we vote on this today until this is taken care of? Are we able to go back
So,
and not assess him for
It's a
the
moving
portion of
target.
the?
so if at the time of the assessment, one of two things can happen. If the time of the final assessment, he's done everything that he needs to do, he wouldn't be assessed for that,
Okay.
for that amount of money. Staff normally comes back with an adjustment. Now, what happens is that PVAS then has to pick up that share, because you can't redistribute it amongst the other residents unless you start the process
right,
from
right.
new.
Right. I understand that, but if he has, with him having these additional ERUs, but which in reality he can't develop on, I agree 1,000%, it's not fair. I mean, he can't develop the land, and they're flooded out properties, Pardon me?
I said there are 2 residences there, that's all there is.
Yeah.
You have 2 ERUs.
It's just 2
Okay.
ERUs versus 10? How many is he gonna get hit with? He mentioned 10, but it was just 10, maybe it was just 10 acres. How many ERUs is he gonna get hit with? How many?
He said
Wait, I got too many
28.
people. I got everybody talking at once. Hold on, go ahead. How many ERUs?
28.
Oh, gosh. Yeah,
That's a problem.
that's silliness.
Okay,
He
that's
can't-
fine.
he can't-
Angela's
he
gonna
can't.
work with him and take care of that. That'd be good.
And this isn't the first time we've seen this. I know Ainsley's done a good job working with, this is probably the 3rd one I've seen where we had this kind of issue.
I
And
thought we brought it back last time.
no, we approved it. We can go back and look, but we approved it.
No, we
and then
approved it.
They were able to fix it, and then we just absorbed the cost, because what's gonna happen is everybody else that's here, maybe that's in favor, and we'll see in a minute, they're gonna have to pay more as well, but
This happened on 20th Street when we did
Yep.
PVAS on 20th. We brought it back.
thank you, sir.
Yep.
So
Okay,
do what he's gonna help you.
Thank you.
all right.
Hello, my name is Leon Wilson. I own property at 37734 at 8th Avenue. I'm not opposed to the paving, which Mr. Oakley knows. We came to the workshop, Mr. Steves and I, the man who was just up here. It's just how it was being presented. And I'm against it based on the fact that it would have been nice if the people like myself or Gary or the rest of us would have been able to at least to vote on a petition like 20th Street, because they brought up 20th Street as how it was being compared to. Well, 20th Street, the people got to vote whether they wanted it or not, but we don't get to vote. We have to ask, you can
We present.
look at our side of it. And I would prefer, to be able to vote on a petition, whether it goes through or not. In the way I'd like to have it, I would sure like to see it not put up here by the board and you do it for us, because then we have our only time is 3 minutes here in a workshop for an hour. And I brought up some items at the workshop. Ainsley has worked with me numerous phone calls. Mine was assessed originally at $21,000 in one letter, then $29,000 in a second letter. I have 4 units on the property. All of them are in the same flood zone. But then we went back, because mine was AR, and they went back to 3.25 just a few days ago. I've got it relieved back down to $5,000.
Yeah.
But the biggest problem that lies is, one of the things at the workshop was the drainage. And we have a drainage of the Lake Zephyr Basin, and we have a culvert problem under that road. And we were assured at the workshop it was going to be taken care of, but the ad in the Tribune that we just ran said no drainage improvements other than ditch cleaning. So the commission ought to look at what they're going to do about that culvert, and no minor dents or no head walls. It's 7 foot deep right against the edge of the road, and it would sure be nice if somebody, whether it be Ainsley or whoever, would look at that, because that hasn't been addressed either. So I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Angela, you're gonna also look at that culvert. We talked about that at the workshop.
In terms of drainage improvements, there's no drainage improvement, but whatever existing drainage, and our stormwater engineer will go out before we actually do the paving.
Okay.
And for example, collapse culverts or, block drains, ditches, swales, those things will be done before the actual paving
Okay.
is done.
Thank you. That's very important. So, okay.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner.
So we've had this happen numerous times where people downzone to avoid paying so many ERUs. And it seems to me we should take the time to really work through those before that final amount is out, because then we're in a fixed, stuck position. So I'd really like, I'd like to see you work with people who have multiple, especially if it's a piece of ag land and they only have 2 houses on it, and we're gonna hit them with 45 VRUs, no one's gonna keep it that way. So let's get those prices right before you bring it to us. That way the county, you know, and the rest of the taxpayers aren't eating the cost, and we have a little more realistic spread of how that fee is being shared. And so if you downzone, if you choose to downzone your property, you can always upzone it later, and then what will what will happen is if you upzone it, then you pay the fee that you didn't pay before. Am I correct?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, so the landowner is protected and the public's protected. I think that's a lot better to have that done ahead of time, before the price is locked in.
Okay.
It's a little more work on your side ahead of time.
Angela, is there a way we can do that prior to us approving? Once we approve it, then the numbers are already
That's too
set?
late, yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking straight off the top of my head, we'd have to declare to all the property owners, you know, you have the option of downzoning. Then 1 or 2 or 10 or however many will decide that they want to downzone. They would have to go through the process, provide us with the information, and we recalculate everything before we bring it back to the board for a final. The challenge here is when we send the initial letter out, we give the maximum assessment. So as
Well, I'd like to know if we need to look at that process.
Okay.
And
I think that's
And
part
we
of the
will.
process we're gonna look at in the near future is the PVAS system, the way it works, and that's part of what we're looking at. County Administrator Dan Biles and all of us have been talking about that issue, and it's gonna come before us pretty soon, I think, so it's a good thing.
Okay,
All right, thank you, Angela.
thank you.
Okay, I do not have anyone else signed up. If you'd like to speak on this item, please come forward.
Move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. P9,
We do have approved Tampa Bay Times, August 17th, 2018.
Good afternoon. Bob Gorey, Pasco County Budget Director. The item before you is a hearing for the purposes of the Federal Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, otherwise known as TEFRA, and it's required by Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code 1986 as amended regarding the possible issuance by the Capital Trust Agency of one or more series of its senior living revenue bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $275 million. As a way of background, the American Eagle Corporation, which is a nonprofit, approached the Capital Trust Agency to borrow $275 million to purchase 17 senior living facilities in 8 different states, one of which is the Brookdale Senior Living Facility in Newport Richey. Although this is a transaction between 2 private companies, in order to issue tax-exempt bonds, 2 things must happen per the IRS code. First is that the commission must agree to the transaction, and secondly, there must be an opportunity for a public hearing to give the public the opportunity to weigh in on the transaction. As the commission is aware, but for the purposes of the folks at home and the folks in the audience, none of this money involved in this transaction is county money. There are no costs involved to the county as part of this deal, and there is no obligation, legal or otherwise, on the part of the county should the applicant default on this loan. With that, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Mayor?
With that, Mr. Chair, that's all I have. If there are no questions from the board, I'd like to open it up to
some
public
mayors
hearing.
have been in trouble lately. Okay, this is a public hearing. I do not have anyone signed up for P9. If you'd like to speak on P9, please come forward.
Seeing no one, move approval?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, sir.
Motion carries. Thanks.
P10 was advertised in the Tampa Bay Times, August 17th and August 24th, 2018.
Good afternoon, Heather Wolf, Real Property and Planning. The Real Property and Planning team has received a petition to vacate Hillcrest Preserve plat, phases 1 and 2, submitted by MMLJ Holdings LLC. The subject vacation area contains 638.286 acres, more or less, and it is located on the north side of State Road 54 to the east of Bellamy Brothers Boulevard and west of Old Pasco
54
Road.
or 52?
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, 52. The rights-of-way that were previously conveyed to Pasco County and the Florida Department of Transportation along State Road 52 and Bellamy Brothers Boulevard, together with a southern portion of Grapevine Parkway, will not be vacated. There are no objections to this petition, and the team recommends approval.
Any questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. I do not have anyone signed up for P10. If you'd like to speak on P10, please come forward. Seeing no
Move
one.
approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. P11, Madam Clerk.
We do have advertisement in the Tampa Bay Times, June 1st, 2018.
Good afternoon, Tammy Snyder, current planner. I bring for you the estates at Fort King MPUD. Currently zoned R3. Proposes rezoning request from an R3 medium density residential zoning district to an MPUD master planned unit development to allow 145 single-family detached units on approximately 50 acres. The minimum lot sizes proposed are 40 feet wide for the interior lots, 50 feet wide for corner lots. There's the master plan.
Could you lift that mic up just a little bit? Thank you.
There you go.
I just want to make sure everyone can hear.
Presently, the subject site contains a barn and some pasture land, and the surrounding zoning districts, existing land uses, and future land uses. Future land use is Res 6 all the way around. The zoning districts are AR all the way around with some R3 to the north, and the uses are residences and farmland and Fort King Road. The proposed development is located in the East Market area. The site is approximately 50 acres, contains approximately 2.5 acres of Category 3 wetlands. They have a developable acreage of approximately 47.25, which under the existing future land use category could allow up to 6 dwelling units per developable acre, and that would be a potential 284 units. The applicant is just proposing 3 dwelling units per acre for a total of 145 dwelling units. The project is exempt from timing and phasing because it's currently approved for 100 single-family detached units under the rezoning petition 6262 in April of 2005. They're just proposing an additional 45 single-family detached units, which would add less than 50 peak hour trips. The proposed request is consistent with the Land Development Code and the comprehensive plan. PDD recommends approval of the rezoning request with conditions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for her? With the applicant, please come forward.
Good afternoon, Barbara Wilhite, 2523 Permit Place, Newport Richey, Florida 34655 for the applicant. As staff has gone through, I think shows you what the land use density is for this property. It's a potential of the 284 units, Res 6 land use. Our proposed density is about half of that, 2.93. There's R3 zoning to the north, which is about 5.8 units per acre, which allows 5.8 units per acre, and there's R2 to the east, 4.6 units per acre. MF zoning to the north of the north parcel, off 2 parcels up, which is 12 units per acre. If you look at the area where this is, there's a hospital to the north, there's a school, high school to the north. There's a reason why your comp plan has it at Res 6. And it's a reason why you see we have R3 and R2 in the area. The water and sewer will be provided by Dade City. Our traffic engineer can present, if you have any questions on rebuttal, to discuss the transportation facilities that are in place and the capacity. Again, there's a reason why your comp plan says Res 6, because because the facilities are there, and that's where you want to put your density. We're at 3 units per acre, which your comp plan says is the minimum amount to have water and sewer. Your comp plan prioritizes the investment in water and sewer and says that in those areas we want to see a density of at least 3 units per acre, and so it's not a surprise that we're at the very bottom of that density. Just like when we talked about the golf course conversion, we're right there at the 3 because we've minimized the density while still having a feasible project. This property was zoned in 2005 with an R3 zoning on it for a medium-density residential district. I was here in 2005 when this project came before, and as you will hear from the neighbors, there was a drainage concern. A drainage concern then in 2005 and a drainage concern now. What's different between 2005 and 2018 is that in 2005, the board really struggled, and they were getting tired of struggling with zoning issues and drainage, zoning and drainage. Zoning is a maximum amount of density. It's not what you can actually develop. What you actually develop is determined by applying the land development code and complying with the land development code. So what the board initiated shortly after, and actually in connection with this project, was a drainage basin of special concern ordinance. It was adopted, this project was approved in, the zoning was approved in April of 2005, and the summer of 2005 is when you adopted your drainage basin of special concern ordinance. The board heard these neighbors' concerns and put stricter requirements. So as we come forward now, in the year 2018, this project has to comply with those standards. Not only do they have to comply with standards, but there was actually a study, the tank lake study was done, a drainage basin special concern study. So the modeling and all of those types of things that the engineer can explain much more better than me, there's already been a study that sets those things. So a lot has happened. The neighbors can't see it because this property is not developed. But when this property is developed at 3 times the requirements of other development projects that don't have drainage basin special concerns, they'll see it, and the engineer will go through and explain actually briefly, and if you want more information, you can always provide it, kind of explain how 29% of the project is going to be ponds and drainage. The transportation, we do have a transportation engineer here, if that becomes an issue, and with that, I'm going to let you hear public comment.
Excuse me.
And we'll be available, well, let me have my drainage engineer come up real quick and just kind of explain drainage to you before you hear public comment, because I think it'll be helpful.
Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Jeremy Couch with Tampa Civil. I'm at 17937 Huntington Circle, Suite 102 in Lutz. Bless you.
And you have been sworn?
I have been sworn, thank you.
Thank you.
As Ms. Wilhide stated, the neighbors' concerns that we know right now are primarily centered around drainage. So I just kind of want to give the board a simple explanation as to what our plan is to deal with drainage, and then I can answer more specifically if you have specific questions about it. So I'm going to put stuff on the Elmo. I have some exhibits. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the FEMA map for this area. I'm sure the board has seen FEMA maps plenty of times. You'll see it's referred to in the code as Tank Lake. The Swift Mud study calls it Duck Lake. So when I say those two, we're going to talk about them interchangeably. If you look to the top right of the screen, the blue hatched area, that is Tank Lake. That flood zone extends far to the east. We are on the outside of it, and the majority of our property is not within it. This is an area of the county that has a lot of slope to it. The next map I'm going to show you this is a contour aerial map. And essentially, our site is, if you look in the middle of the page, there's a little circle to the right-hand side. That's the low portion of our site. And what happens right now is there's a large hill. The water runs down off of the hill through our site into that low area. In conjunction with that, the flood zone that you saw that's on the other side of Fort King backs up into our site. So the neighbors, their concern that I've heard is you're going to dump more water on us. That's the biggest concern. We're higher than them. Their fear is we're going to dump more water on them. As Ms. Wilhite stated, Pasco County has a special section of the code called Basins of Special Concern. A typical development, we deal with a 25-year storm, which is about an 8-inch rainfall over one day. What your code does, and it's one of the most restrictive, if not the most restrictive that I've seen in the entire Tampa Bay Metro, is it makes us analyze a 24-inch deep storm over 10 days. So that's back-to-back rains that really hammer. And what we have to do is we have to ensure that we're not going to put any new volume downstream. So essentially, regular development captures the water, slows it down, and slow releases. This particular project, we're going to catch it, keep it, and it's never going to go downstream. So I'm going to kind of show you a conceptual development plan just so that I can talk about how we're going to do that. And of course, this is going to be reviewed by your engineers. This is also going to be reviewed by the Swift Mud. So essentially, there's almost 100 acres that comes down off the hill. It's very steep. It rushes quick. It goes through our property and goes to the top right. And there it commingles with the water from Tank Lake and backs up and goes forward. What we're going to do is we're going to catch the water upstream. So anything that's coming into us, along with water from our development, we're going to pipe it and we're going to put it up in area 2. That area is going to be about 10 foot deep. It's going to be a dry retention area, and we're going to keep it there. We're not going to let it go downstream. That's the simple concept of what we're doing. In addition to that, in area 1, if you see the black circles, today that's about where the water sits. The heavy black circles, we're going to dig out around that. So we're going to reduce the water that's going there considerably. And then we're going to give more area for the water to flood into. So we're going to reduce the water and give it new area to sit. That's the concept of what we're going to do here. It's not that complicated. In doing that, we are just a small part of the overall Tank Lake, though. One 50-acre project is not going to fix the flooding that happens downstream. But we are going to do our little part. And our little part is to put in infrastructure, trap the water, and keep the volume. We're not going to slow release. We're just going to hold it. As Ms. Wilhite stated, about 30%, 29% right now of our project is dedicated to drainage areas. Catching water, holding water, storing water. Typical development is usually somewhere between 12 and 18%. So we have a ton of drainage. We're high on the hill. We're going to catch the water up on the hill and keep it up there. That's the concept. We're going to go through regulatory review, and we're going to meet your code. And I'm here if you have any specific technical questions.
Commissioner Moore?
Thank you, sir. So, listening to your statements, are you saying that it would be better than what it is today?
In my opinion, yes. And I'm not here by myself today.
Okay.
I also have 2 professional engineers from my company, Ryan Heilman and Paul Phelps.
Okay.
This is what.
Okay, so their thought is it would be better than, it possibly will be better than,
We
it can't be
believe-
worse.
we-
'Cause under the code, obviously, it says it can't be worse.
Yes, sir. So what we did is we actually took the Swift Mud study beyond, the common sense approach that I just laid out for you. We took the Swift Mud study and we put our new ponds in, and we put our new impervious and our roads in. And what we do show is, granted, we're just a small, tiny crumb of a giant piece of pie, but we do show a reduction in our little area. So we are making it better. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Morano?
And I did meet with the applicant a bit ago. Matter of fact, while I met with the applicant, I should call Mr. Coach and we did talk about the drainage a bit. And the basin of special concern is a very good thing that the commission did many years ago to try to help. We talked a little bit about trying to tweak it a little bit more. Did you guys get to do any of those changes?
Yes, sir, we actually did. So if you look on the southeast corner, we were going to put our park in that area. And actually, so I talked with the developer. We're actually going to turn that into more storage, more retention. And we gave up lots in the southwest corner. Initially, before we had a cul-de-sac and some more lots over there. We actually eliminated that, so we're going to move our park back there and give more drainage on the east side of the property where it needs it. So we're going to remove the area that drains there and give it more storage.
All right, so what they had to do with the basin of special concern, they've even gone a little bit past that now and just maximize it a little bit, so thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Oakley?
From 07 to 11, I was with the governing board with Swift Mud when we did this study, and I was chairman of Swift Mud in 10 and 11. And the tank lake, this water from this area will not move across that road. It has to rise to go across it. You're going to catch it. I appreciate that. I think you're thinking of that district of special concern across the road. Their water deals with the tank lake issue, and I figured out back in between 07 and 11 that if we set a culvert there on the railroad track bed at a certain height, it would keep Hickory Hills property from flooding on that lower side.
Yes, sir.
And it would naturally flow out of there. I've reached out to the Evans Properties family, and I'm going to set up some meetings to have with them again about that same issue. They have always, during emergency times, allowed the county to go in and pump water over that railroad bed to relieve those houses. Sometimes the reason when you're pumping it gets behind and people flood. So if that culvert could be set at a certain level, that water would just naturally flow out and go on out to the green swamps like it should.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for what you've done on preparing that. So.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you. This is a public hearing. We do have, I believe, 7 people signed up to speak.
Okay. So we have Lori Larkin, Jeff Ritchie, Jackie Germain, sorry?
Jermaine.
Oh, Germain, okay. And then Barry, no. It says Estates of Fort King, 12-5-24 Green Oak, but doesn't have a name, so that person. And then Jay Chamberlain, Angel Hakuna.
So if you could just come forward and you can line up.
And Eddie Schultz and Darcy Martin, or Doug Martin, maybe. You guys could go ahead and line up, that'd be great. Go, you don't have to line up in order, just go ahead and come forward.
And your name and address for the record, and if you've been sworn, please.
Lori Larkin, 12321 Fort King Road. I have been sworn in. I live adjacent to the property in question for development known as the Estates of Fort King Ranch. I have heard many times during the different meetings that I have attended the words the comprehensive plan allows for. Just because something is allowed does not mean it has to be done or should be done. Just because this land can be developed does not mean that it should. While I cannot begrudge the landowner for his desire to develop his land, as it is his right, a responsible landowner should take a look around the surrounding properties and consider the neighbors. In the surrounding area, there is currently one home on at least 3 or more acres. It is proposed to increase the homes allowed on this property from 100 to 145. That is 3 homes per acre. The type of development proposed does not fit in with this area. The homes he will be building, as proposed, will be 20 feet from my property line with the current setbacks. A setback from our property line, including our driveway, of 300 feet would be ideal. The average height of a single-story home is 15 feet, with each additional story 10 feet. Our home is 15 feet high. Based on the proposed 35-foot home height, it is realistic to expect that these homes could be 3-story homes and taller than my home. The height of these homes needs to be restricted to 15 feet. As it stands now with the proposed development, I will not be able to look out of any window in my home, nor sit on my front porch or my back porch and not see a house that the landowner has developed. Think about that, not one window or porch. How would you feel if this was being developed around your home? The traffic that this development will add to the already congested Fort King Road will be a nightmare. I cannot imagine adding at least 290 vehicles to an already crowded road if you allow 145 homes. According to the site plan, the entrance to the development will be just south of the curve on Fort King Road. This curve is a dangerous area and will be more so with additional traffic. How will any of us who live close to this development be able to safely pull out of our driveways? The turn lanes the developer keeps mentioning are not going to solve this problem. You, the commissioners, are to represent and look out for the citizens' concerns, not just the developers. The attorney representing the landowner does not live here. The landowner himself does not live here. The engineers do not live here. They call elsewhere home. They get to develop the property with little regard to those who actually call this town home. The people speaking to you now are who have to deal with the issues, and they are going to leave behind unless you decide otherwise. Restrict them to their original 100 homes with the conditions on setbacks and home heights. Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing? Jeff Ritchie, 12509 Green Oak Lane, Hickory Hills. I have been sworn in. It's not just the flooding that's an issue with this neighborhood, it's the traffic. You know, there's no sidewalks to the high schools, to the middle school. You know, you have gullies or culverts on both sides of the road. Mr. Oakley, you live on Fort King. You know, put that neighborhood next to yours. You know, at the wrong time of the day, it's hard enough to get out of our neighborhood. They're not looking at stop signs. They're not looking at signals. You have the hospital right there. You have people that don't even stop, as it is for somebody trying to get into the hospital in an emergency vehicle for that matter. You know, you have kids that are walking along the side in the culverts, getting to and from school because buses are strict time. If they play sports and their parents are still in school, they're walking that. And now we want to add another 45 homes on top of the 100. That's a lot of traffic. And at the end of the day, it could be a lot of lives if we don't look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Jackie Germain. I've been sworn, and I live in Hickory Hills, and I live in Tank Lake Basin. There was flooding in 1987, there was flooding in 2003, there was flooding in 2004, and in 2015 we had pumps. The issue here isn't just that we flood. There are other issues that go along with the flooding. On Green Oak Lane, the entrance to our street floods. We actually are encircled by the water. The only way in and the only way out is by a high-profile vehicle. If you don't have a vehicle that has tires about this big and about this high, you're not going to get in and out. In 2004, we had people wearing waders with children on their shoulders wading out of Green Oak Lane to get to their cars so that they could go to work. I oppose the increase in the density of this development because although there are a lot of models that have been done, computer models that show that this water is going to be held back on their property and that it's going to go with the natural flow and it's going to drain down into Clinton into a pond. I don't believe that Mother Nature really pays attention to all of these models. And when they breach those ponds with the water that we're already hold, and I appreciate, Mr. Oakley, that you mentioned the Evans property owners and working with them and this and that, there, other. But there's no guarantee that Evans will give us the right of way to lower the culverts on the railroad bed and to construct an outflow ditch. They have resisted in the past. Perhaps, sir, you can convince them this time. But when those ponds overflow and they only have one way to go, and that's down into Tank Lake Basin, what are you going to do for us besides bringing pumps. And that's always after the fact. And people have lost homes. I know I'm over my time.
No, you're fine.
But I just want you to look at the overall big picture. And something that we've been told from time to time having to do with this is that when we want that railroad bed open, they tell us we can't flood people downstream. But when we're being flooded, there isn't anybody that comes to us and advocates for us. And I really wish you would be our advocates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Marie McLeod, 12524 Green Oak Lane, Dade City, Florida. I have been a victim twice of flooding.
And you've been sworn, ma'am?
Yes.
You've been sworn.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Twice I have been flooded. You have heard it all, and it is true. I just want to say I want to place my trust and faith in you with this project that we won't be flooded. We know, we heard it before, they did not want to do with the culvert because the culvert would impact downstream. I haven't done my homework. I do not know who owns downstream or what it is. But I think it's time that we look at the land and see what we have. This area was a lake. Mr. Oakley, you can tell that, right? The places that we have built that shouldn't have been built. So I would like to place my trust in you that you will keep us safe and dry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jan Chamberlain. I live at 12451 Fort King Road. I'm up here because I'm going to plead for common
And you
sense.
have
Yes,
been
I took
sworn?
it.
Thank
I
you.
swore. Thank you. I'm going to plead for common sense here. Has anybody here been to the site? Do you know what we're talking about? Anybody? Exactly. And that's the whole lack of common sense that I've seen go through this thing. We all showed up for the planning and development meeting, and we might as well have been talking to dead fish up there. They stood there and just rolled their eyes and this and that, and nobody listened to what we had to say. That was insulting at the least. Now, my biggest problem here is there are new houses going up around this development that all have 5 acres or more, maybe 3 acres. I don't understand why you're going to take something like that and smack down put it in the middle of an existing neighborhood. I understand the man has a right to build his property, but the problem is he didn't take into effect, and neither did planning and zoning, that people already own 5 to 10 acres there. It's an established neighborhood. This is where we moved to get away from that. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. We've got a hospital right down the road. We've got a high school right down the road. And they want to go and take that one road that we all live on, that we all use, and shut it down. Because you're going to have to shut that road down, at least to a 1-lane restriction, while they build this and build that there. You can't do that. That's not common sense. And the one thing that nobody's brought up, do I have to go?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay.
You're good.
The one thing that nobody's brought up is we are all on well water here. And I know that when there was a new house going in right next to that property, my well got funky for a while. This is residential, a building like that with all this debris going into that wetlands, that could be where we pull our water from. That's not fair to all of these people that are here that are so against this. I'm just asking for common sense. Somebody take a look at this and say, this is not common sense. Because you're going to hear from a lot of us here today. I can tell by the line behind me and a couple of ones who haven't signed in yet. We're just asking for common sense here. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Betty Jean Perez and my husband Edward Perez. We live at 12431 Fort King Road. Our property is adjacent to this property on the other side.
Immediately north.
Immediately north. And there is a fence, there's our road, and there's our property. And when it rains and that pond gets full, it has no place else to go other than above ground. Okay, they said they're gonna go ahead and they're gonna make that bigger, and there's gonna be like 7 acres there to hold the water, and they're gonna have another section where they're gonna have 2 acres, and it's gonna be 10 feet down and all that. After that fills up, where's it going? I can tell you where it goes. It seeps through the sand, and it comes into my property. I've got a picture, we did yesterday, of the water's already seeping, going through. And it's a shame. That pond cannot hold all that. What they're gonna do, I can guarantee you, it's not gonna hold all that. When that water comes down off those hills, it comes down like a river, a rushing river. And it literally can destroy, it's destroyed our road where we've had to build up our road and everything.
Actually, it's an easement, it's our property we pay taxes for. It's just our driveway for all of us to get into, and we pay taxes on it. You can see where the lake, I'll call it a lake, it's a pond.
See the water there?
The pond has already overgrown, and it's all the way up to a fence line. You can see where the guy that's mending the fence drove through, and that's what you got. It's already a mush area. And it gets any higher than that, it seeps under the driveway that we built up about 1.5 feet or so, and it seeps up under that and pops up on our side.
And we've had our land in 2005, I believe it was, when we had that big rainstorm, 2005 and 2006. It flooded half of our property. The road was completely underwater because it had no place else to go. This is what it looked like yesterday. And this is just regular summer winds. We can deal with that. But if they put houses and there's cement there, that water doesn't have time to absorb. It's gonna just keep going and going.
We know that they have already approved for 100 homes. 145, forget it. What they need is more storage. And they're talking about a 5-foot berm from my fence line right there over. Minimum for DOT is usually 10 feet, so that you can allow then a 4-to-1 beyond that, but they need to build it up right at that fence line to keep the water on their side and contain it. They're not doing this. They're gonna have to remove dirt anyway to make it bigger. They need to make a berm that's higher than that elevation right here where the corner of our road is. Could we take a little more, because we're 2 people?
It's a shame what's going on down there. And nope, everybody keeps saying, oh, it's gonna be common sense. They're gonna put in more drainage things and all. Common sense is you don't put 145 houses crammed together.
Don't poke your husband with that pen. Be careful.
But they're all cramped
Oh,
on
boy.
there. All you have is cement on there. And the cement, it's gonna continue going down. It has no place to purge. And the water needs to perk. And when it's like that, it's not gonna perk, other than sit there and keep going up.
Just to put a nice point onto the drainage engineer guy, he did a good job and a good presentation. I mean, it really looked great. But the calculations that they make is when everything was really low and basically dry. You get 24 inches after all this water has come in, a hurricane come through, it's gonna be on our property flooding us.
And the people across, they're already.
They can't hold it.
Some
They
of their
cannot hold
properties
it.
are already underwater.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, okay. Thank you both.
My name is Eddie Schultz. I live at 12510 Fort King Road. My property is on the east side of Fort King, directly across from the subject property. There's a lot of things been said today that, I would have said too, but I've been in the real estate business for 48 years. During that period of time, I've developed a number of subdivisions. The largest one was about 1,100 units. I can tell you the very first thing that we do My engineer and I, when we have a piece of ground, one of the first things, we try to figure out where the water's going. And we're trying to figure out how fast that water is going to go there. I do believe the fact that the engineers have done a good job of trying to come up with a solution for handling both of those types of situations. I can't, the one thing though that I would say to you is what the last couple said to you. I think y'all received some pictures yesterday about lakes or pieces of ground that had a lot of water on it. Their particular pond was, I would say probably 50% higher or bigger than it was just a week ago. 2 weeks ago, we got 6.5 inches of rain. The one that you saw across the street, that one is probably at least 75 to 100% bigger over a 1 week period. So there is a real concern about the ability for the water to actually be absorbed. And if we have that standing water there, the problem is, let's say he's got a 2.5 foot deep dry retention area. He's got a foot of water in it. Now all of a sudden his calculations have to basically take care of 2.5 feet of water. He can't, because there's already a foot sitting in there. Now, you know, if you go by, I went by Clinton the other day when I went over to see the engineer. There was 1.5 foot to 2 foot of water in that Clinton dry retention pond. So it doesn't take much to be able to put that in there. The question is, how fast can it be absorbed? And when one of my neighbors asked me to say something today, and I'll say something. In 2004, he's right behind me. In 2004, he couldn't get out of his house for 6 months because of the fact that the water just stayed there. He had to basically go back through a neighbor behind him in order to get in and out. There was no emergency services allowed back in there. He said the fact that he told him, he said, if I get a heart attack, what happens? He said, well, we can't help you. You know, he had no, bathroom facilities because unfortunately the septic tanks that we have there are basically now flooded. So there's other things other than just the technical side of the engineering. I know that, again, from my own personal experience. And the one thing that I would like to say is, y'all had an agreement. In fact, you've studied a lot, and you've had an agreement to basically fix the tank lake situation. The question is whether or not you're going to move forward and being able to do this once and for all. Let's, you know, we've got two holes up here. Well, on most bathtubs, like Tank Lake is, I'd want to have my hole down just like I would in my bathtub, down towards the bottom. We can't wait for the water to get way up here before it starts going out over the top of this. Anyway, I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Cheryl Musgrove, and my mom is also here, but she has myasthenia gravis. I don't know if you know what it is, but
My mom has it, yeah.
she's sitting in the back. Her name is Martha Dameron. I am speaking for her, even though I live in Hickory Hills. Her name is Martha Dameron. Her address is 12231 Fort King Road in Dade City. Her property is where the curve of Fort King is, right in front of Hickory Hills. And I believe the traffic will funnel down into right where the beginning of her property. So it will affect her, and she's 75 years old this year. Sorry, I didn't bring my glasses, so I'm working on it. She's lived there since 1987. I was actually in high school, and I was sworn, by the way. She moved there in 1987 with my dad, who's now passed. She is a widow, lives by herself. She has standing water in her property now. And there's been no big flood. There's been no big storm. There's been regular rain and regular thunderstorms that happen all the time. There's a negative impact on the water drainage for the people. When you put that much concrete, the water's gonna stop, or it's gonna go around. You know, water goes wherever it goes. There's no stopping it when it wants to go somewhere. Something no one has mentioned with all these retention ponds is stagnant water, stinky water, mosquitoes, disease. All that's gonna happen. We don't have that now because the water can actually seep. When you take a lot of water in one area and dig straight down, the water can't, there's saturation issues. They're not gonna pump it off and try to get it into the rest of the land at all. They're gonna literally let it sit in one spot. When it's full up and more rain comes, what's gonna happen? It's only got so much space to go. And it sounds like a lot, but when it sits there and sits there and sits there and then more rain comes, or we have 2 or 3 storms in a row or a couple hurricanes, because we're getting into hurricane season, what are you gonna do? Going from 100 to 145 homes is a lot. It's gonna impact traffic. You've got the arbors less than a mile away. There's over 100 homes there. They tried to have more, we stopped it. There's the Dade City Bus Garage for Pasco County. There's the football games with the high school. There's graduation, there's Sparkle-Bration, there's Hickory Hills. There's over 150 homes in there. That's right there at the other way. It bottlenecks right there across from where my mom lives and where Hickory Hills is 150 homes. You want to live in Hickory Hills? It used to be the Javita, but not anymore. Now we're going to have crazy parking. The overflow water is going to go where it's going to go, and it's going to go down to Green Oak Lane that hasn't been fixed. Flooding plans are nice, but if they don't work, real people's lives in older homes are at risk of flood damage and loss. The surrounding properties are all over 3 acres and have 1 house except for the arbors. This area is a rural farming community. And one last thing, the number of homes approved is already too many, but they are approved. But this panel can stop any increase so everyone can try to survive all the effects of this panel's decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kathleen Schrumpf. My address is 12457 Fort King Road, and I have been sworn. I also share the access road that Betty Jean and Eddie talked about. I live just north of that property, and as you can see, we've got a picture on the overhead. That picture is what it looked like in 2005. Across the bottom edge of the property you're talking about developing. I realize that water didn't all come from the property you're developing. That's overflow from Tank Lake. Can you please put the next one on? That's the view going down our road, going west. And as you can see, the portion on the right-hand side there, that's up my neighbor's field that was completely flooded. And the next picture, that's our side of the road. Our road was enveloped. It was flooded. We had no access to public services or emergency services. I understand that the engineers were very kind to have us to a meeting a few weeks ago where they explained their drainage problems and what they wanted to do to mitigate it. I understand they're not responsible for the entire flooding issue in this area. However, I'm not confident that what they're doing isn't going to at least exacerbate the problem we have coming from both directions. They'll be covering the hillside with concrete and roads, and the drainage ponds and mitigations that they have in place may help. They probably will help. But what I would like to propose is that you don't approve this until you actually have the state look at, and SwiftMud, and look to see if their mitigations are really gonna help. Because I really think there's a problem here and you're gonna make it worse. So in addition to that, I agree with all the comments about the traffic. It's getting more and more dangerous to get out and try to turn either way on Fort King Road. You're gonna have, at minimum, have to add stoplights there. So that's it for me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Nancy Hazewood, 34110 A Nice Place. I have not been sworn.
Okay, can you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
2004, I was in Hickory Hills. I saw the devastation it did to the citizens there. That's one of the reasons I became interested in government. Being a basin of special concern, there's still problems. They are not fixing the basement of special concern completely. Until that is done, please don't put your citizens at risk. You're there to protect them. Please help them in this case and make sure that their flooding problems are completely taken care of, that there's no risk whatsoever of this ever happening again. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've not been sworn in.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Tim Ferry. I live at 12501 Fort King Road. I've owned the property since '98. I had the motocross track at the top of the hill, and since this has been an ongoing issue, now we're seeing this thing rise again. I feel like they're going to do a good job at stopping that water. What I've seen is really Tank Lake's the problem, because I watched it not being able to get to my property, having to come through Judy Street and cut my fence to get back onto my house. The water came under Fort King, across the Perez's property, and into the pond where they're showing on their map on their property. The only thing I think is that, well, if they trap everything there, that's fine, but when Tank Lake backs up, well, Perez's property and everybody else is going to suffer. Hickory Hills probably the most, if they're already flooding more. So I kind of see Hickory Hills as being really the bad area, and something you guys really need to look into, because I think they're doing a good job at keeping their water on the property, but they're actually going to flood Hickory Hills more. And I've been here since 2000, so I've seen it all. Along with the neighbors, we got well into over tens of thousands of dollars in that road, building up that's now this high. And as Eddie said, Eddie's only that high. So Hickory Hills is definitely the issue, in my opinion. Add to the roads. I have kids. I'd love for them to be able to walk to school, to the high school. If we are going to go in this direction, I think it's very important to start giving the community, the sidewalks and the safety that, that all the other growing towns have as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Please come line up behind this young lady.
Hi, I have not been sworn in.
Oh, raise your right hand.
Does anybody else need to be sworn in that hasn't been sworn in?
A little late to the party.
Okay, if you could stand. Thank you. And raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And the rest of you? You need to hear yes or no? Okay.
Can everybody line up that's going to speak still?
Yeah, whoever's going to speak on the side, if you just line up,
We need to
please.
line up, so he knows how many are left.
Thank you.
My name is Sheila Tomlinson. I live at 12649 Green Oak Lane in Dade City. And I moved into my home in 2004 and was totally unaware of the flooding issues that were happening. Within 2 months, we had our hurricanes come in. I was the mother of twin daughters that every day I had to walk with my children on my shoulders and whip and waist-deep water, so we'd go to school and work every day for over a month. That was because we didn't have access in and out of even just our street. The water came up in our backyard, and since then I've done the investigation along with my neighbors and finding out there is a solution. We've been discussing this for years and years and years, and we all know the solution, but we've asked that no more homes be built until it's taken care of. We're now looking at going from an increase of 50% more homes is what Mr. Boker is looking for, to increase to go from 100 to 145. That's a lot of roof, that's a lot of cement, that's a lot of driveways, that's a lot of sidewalk, that's a lot of property, cement, of pavement. And the aesthetics, I understand that we're in a rural area, but it's already been zoned 100. God bless him, let him go ahead and build his 100 homes. But we had asked that our situation be taken care of before more homes were being built in that area. And we already know that it is a special interest basin. There was approval done between Swiftmud and Pasco County for $603,000 that was never, we don't know where the money went and if it was ever fixed. I found documents that showed that they were going to move it from where Mr. Evans' property is, the culvert, to not fix them there, but go downstream near Wilson Road. We don't know if that's ever been taken care of. I have some of those documents with me now. And we would just like this situation resolved. As all our neighbors say, we've only been having regular summer rain. It's already up in my backyard. I'm on 2 acres, and it's getting to the point where it's half of my neighbors behind me can't even get out of their homes. So just want the consideration and have the problem fixed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Doug Martin. I've been sworn in. I live in Dade City, 12453 Fort King Road. Please cast my appearance as dissenting the proposal to rezone this acreage from R3 Medium Density Residential District to MPUD, Master Planned Unit Development. A couple of ideas. I live on 25 acres just to the north near Eddie Perez, and when I moved in, everybody just told me about the flooding in this neighborhood and how they had to have a 4-wheel drive vehicle to get up our road, and people actually had to use little boats to get to the east side of Fort King. Fort King right now is just a 2-lane highway. There's no sidewalks or anything, although it's near the high school, and I can understand this place is ready to be developed. Within the Northwest Pasco Rural Plan, it's meant to preserve the rural lifestyle. Large farms and ranches that we're surrounded by, we understand they could be claimed by high-density subdivisions. We understand growth is good, but I'm saying please don't change the zoning. If it's already going to be 100, let's stick with that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm sick. My name is Araceli Corona, and I live on 12526 Fort King Road. I have a 10
Could you
acres.
spell that? I'm sorry. Could you spell that?
Araceli, Araceli.
Okay.
Corona, Corona.
Thank you.
I live in 12526 Fort King Road, and I have 10 acres. And out of those 10 acres, 7 acres are already flooded. And in 2004, we didn't have a way out. And I think y'all really need to think about when you're approving this, plans, because it's gonna hurt us. I mean, I can sell you my 7 acres so you can do a retention pond, and we can fix some of the problem. So just think about it. I mean, we put in our trust on you, and I see that he's looking at me. Go see my property. Maybe y'all are interested. Okay? But I'm really concerned because, like they say, they have health issues. I have health issues, and we didn't have a way out. We had to go and beg a neighbor to let us get out through their property because, we were flooded. We were not able to go to work for a couple of days. I think we were flooded in our property for about 6 months or more. Wow. I get most of the water that comes from Tank Lake. So just go and visit me, and I can show you what I'm talking about because I know some of y'all don't even know what's living in that area. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Reese. My address is 12401 Fort King Road. My property directly abuts on the north side of their property.
Excuse me, could you repeat your last name, please?
R-E-I-S.
Thank you.
I agree with everyone, and everyone's talking about the water, and I've heard all that. My issue is more of the 40-foot boundaries on the property. And the property at 145 lots, becoming low income, becoming run down. I don't think they'll be able to get the money that they want to get for the property, excuse me. And that's my concern. I haven't had anyone's issues with that. But around us, it's all bigger lots. It's all acreage. And I just see that in the middle becoming a problem with 40-foot lots. That's my issue. I haven't heard anything else about that, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anybody else like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing no one, the applicant would like to come back forward.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question to staff first?
Sure. I have some stuff.
I'm just going to take the question. Okay. On our agenda item, it says on April 26, 2005, the board approved the rezoning from AR zoning district to R3, and they had requested initially R4 with a cap of 100 dwelling units.
Correct.
Later on our agenda, under item E, it says that because less than 50 additional peak hour trips are generated, that they're exempt from any timing and phasing analysis.
Correct.
I don't know why, if we made an approval based upon 100 units, and the board was comfortable with that, that gets an automatic bump up of 45%.
I apologize, I don't have the answer for that. Is traffic and...
Well, who's the person above you to ask?
Well, Essen Khalil did the...
You pull the microphone up, please. Thanks.
Essen Khalil, I believe, is the one that did the staff responsible for the determination.
We need someone to answer us. Yeah.
Thank you, Will.
That question.
Thank you.
Will Penn, current planning. Like you had mentioned earlier, the requirements in the code doesn't exceed the trip required. It's less than 100 peak trips, and in this case, it was 50 peak trips. That was therefore it's exempt per our code. I'm sure the traffic consultant can expand further on that in his analysis.
Thank you.
I didn't really understand his answer.
Barbara Wilhite. So yes, under the code, we weren't required to do any traffic analysis, but I attended the Planning Commission and heard the traffic concerns. We had a meeting with the neighbors, primarily focused on drainage and going through the details of the drainage, but we heard about traffic. So we had Mr. Razor do an analysis and do counts and go out there. So I'd like for him to present what he did.
Good afternoon, Michael Razor, for the record, 19046 Bruce B. Downs Boulevard, number 308, Tampa, Florida, and I have been sworn. I'm the president of Razor Transportation Consulting, a registered professional engineer with 20-plus years of experience with a specialization in traffic, and I have been before this board several occasions. I'd like to start by indicating that many times traffic complaints are subjective in nature based on perception. So what we have done to address the community comments received at the meeting were to perform a quantitative traffic analysis that's based on traffic counts, comparing the results to the quantitative measures in the Land Development Code. The capacity of Fort King Road is approximately 1,120 vehicles per hour based on FDOT criteria for that type of road. The existing traffic volume out there today during peak hours is about 650. That puts it at a level service C, which is meeting your standards. With this project in place, that number would go from about 650 up to 720, which is still level service C. That's an increase from about 60% of its available capacity to using about 65% of its available capacity. So in either case, with or without this development, meeting the comp plan's level of service criteria, and no degradation in level of service associated with the development of the project. In addition, we looked at the ability for this project at 145 units to access Fort King Road, as we understood that there were issues from the community with being able to get out onto Fort King Road. And at 145 units, we identified that the egress level of service is also at C, with a delay that's about 10% of what your code would allow. So in doing this traffic analysis, again, based on concerns we heard at the neighborhood meeting, we identified that this project would fall within all the parameters required by the Land Development Code if we were subject to a traffic study. The specific question, Mr. Mariano, in regard to the timing and phasing study, for a discretionary approval such as an MPUD, the determination of a need for a traffic study is based on the increase in trips. So at 100 units, the trip generation was, let's say it was about 100. It's about 1-to-1. So about 100 peak hour trips. At 145, it's about 145 peak hour trips. The determination for the need for a traffic study at a discretionary approval level is 50. So this discretionary approval would result in 45 additional peak hour trips. Therefore, we're below the 50 that would require the formal traffic study. But what we've done is very similar to the information that would be gathered for that. And I'll be here for any questions if you have them in regard to traffic. Thank you.
Are we going to have them do rebuttal and then take our comments, or do you want us to make comments and then you come back?
Not rebuttal, it's applicant's rebuttal,
Okay,
then
and then we have,
discussion.
okay, because I have some questions.
So I hope that that answers the traffic question, and we went above and beyond the code and engaging Mr. Razor so that he could review the actual situation, given the concerns of the neighbors. You also heard about, Ms. Larkin talked about 35 feet as the maximum height. The property is currently zoned R3, and the maximum height is 35 feet. So there's no change proposed there. I also heard her concerned about setbacks. The R3 current zoning today setback is 15 feet. Our proposed minimum setback is 10 feet. I've talked to the engineer, and we'll match what the proposed zoning has today, which is 15 feet. So we will obligate ourselves as a change here to our plan to 15-foot minimum setbacks as opposed to the 10 that we have proposed right now. So it'll match the existing zoning. There was quite a few comments about sidewalks. Our project will have internal sidewalks, but we'll also do the sidewalk on Fort King Road along our frontage. So we will be providing for sidewalks. The county will have to pick up and do off of our project, but we are doing our part and we're meeting the requirements. Again, I know you hear, keep it at the same density that is around it, but the reason why your comp plan focuses forward is because to provide the infrastructure. You hear there's flooding, there's no sidewalks, there's all these issues. That is why your comp plan requires and says this is where we're going to have density so that we can provide a project that exceeds the drainage requirements, that has sidewalks, that has infrastructure, it has street lights and all those things that your code now requires. So the other comment we've heard, that it's a rural area, and you heard the Northeast Pasco plan cited. It is not a rural area. It's an area that you have designated for Res 6 land use, 6 units per acre. Let's see if there's anything else that I tried to make notes. I think I hit all the items that were mentioned to you. If you have any questions, I'm available. Project engineer is available to come back up and talk about drainage again or any other items you might have. The other thing I would add is that not only will we match the setbacks in the zoning today, but we put in a minimum lot size of 40 by 100. The client is proposing to do 50-foot lots. The reason why we put 40 in there is because when we would do rezonings with a larger minimum lot size and then the market would change, then we were back amending and having to have your staff re-review. But we're fine with making it 50-foot lots, 50 by 100 with 15-foot setbacks, and would be agreeable to a condition to do that. We also have to comply with the Drainage Basin Special Concern Ordinance. There's not a specific condition written in our conditions of approval. We'd be happy if that's added, just to reinforce when the plan reviewers are reviewing that they know that it's a Drainage Basin Special Concern. We can add that condition as well.
Mr. Chairman? So, just on that point, Barbara, real quick. So you would add that to the MPUD?
Yes.
So that stipulation would be in the MPUD that and then when the reviewers are doing the site, you're doing the site plan, they're reviewing it, they can make sure, along with Swift Mud, because they'll be involved too, that the drainage would be better, it's the same or better than it is today, right?
That's correct. I think it's a good idea to put it in as a condition.
For the
so it's
surrounding
in there.
area.
Right.
That makes me a lot more comfortable. I was
So
not
so if
comfortable
you're
with the
willing to put
40.
that in the MPD, that's just for the people in the
That's
audience, that's
big,
huge,
yeah.
that never happens, so.
That's what we're working.
And they will not be low-income houses. They'll be in the mid-200s to high 200s.
Well, Mr. Chairman, that was my concern was the 40-foot lots. But 50-foot I'm much more comfortable with. And I think as the area, as landowners come in with development, each landowner will do their little part to help fix the flooding there. But I am a little curious. It's not, doesn't affect your, doesn't affect your project, but I am curious about that Swift Mud project, if there was something there and it didn't get done, but I guess that's a topic for another day. But I appreciate you going to the 50-foot and the setbacks.
What you're referring to is the fact that in Tank Lake, we don't have that ability to cross that riverbed without the permission of the Evans family, and I am working back with them again, and they've said they would listen. So I'm gonna meet with them and try to get that worked out and explain to them why. Does it help them in the 100-year floodplain? It helps nobody in the 100-year floodplain because all of Dade City's flooded in the 100-year floodplain.
Right.
But if that water can move as it comes into that area before it floods those homes in Hickory Hills, that is a great thing to solve a lot of those issues they're having. And it needs to be done. It really needs to be done. It's needed to be done ever since I was chairman at Swift Mud back in 2010 and 11. So I realize that, I worked on it, I understand it, and I appreciate this development, taking care of more than the water, as much water as they can coming down the hill and keeping it from going across there. And the road, Fort King Road is raised right there, this development, it's not gonna go across there. So.
And maybe someone take a look at those 7 acres that were discussed here.
Okay, does anybody, I do have some questions for staff about that. I know the young lady brought up the $600,000 and about maybe like the Swift Mud project. We can talk about that, but it is important that we see something throughout there too.
Right.
It sounds, it's obviously been an issue for a long time, so.
Move for approval.
Okay. Second? Do I have a second?
Second.
So can I make a
Go ahead,
discussion?
Commissioner Moore.
Just because that was offered, but in the MPUD, adding that stipulation that referenced LEC 902.2, is that correct, what we talked about earlier? So you could add that to your motion?
Yeah, add that to my motion.
And
So
the
reference LEC
15-foot setback.
902.2N.
And the 15-foot setback.
15-foot setback, 50-foot lots, which is the market today out there, is 50-foot lots, not
So
40s.
when they go to.
But they're gonna go
site
through
review,
staff, and they're gonna go through Swift Mud yet on this project, so all those issues will be looked at again.
And that ordinance you were just speaking by numbers, based on the special concern.
Right, so
Okay.
I
Just
wish I
make sure
can't
that-
really, I got it
Okay,
here,
you
but
got the
I
number.
can't pass
Just
it
make
out,
sure
so
we're
I
talking
don't have
about-
enough copies for you guys. It's
That's
my
fine.
own.
The second just go for that.
Okay.
So just so I've got this straight, you're amending 19.1 or 19.1, which says 40-foot to 50-foot. You're amending the section on setbacks to 15 feet?
Yep, that's what she said.
And you're adding the standard condition on a basin of special concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 902.2N.
So that's part of it.
Yeah. References, that part's
Okay.
referenced.
Yes.
Yeah.
Call the question.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. P12,
We do have proof of publication for P12, Tampa Bay Times, August 15th, 2018.
You know, let this thin out.
that's a tough one.
So, Mr. Chairman. Break or just walk on our own, what do you think?
Let's do it.
You want a break, 5 minutes?
Yeah, why don't we take a 5
Okay, while everybody's walking out, we're going to take a 5-minute recess.